concepts of object-oriented programming. Okay. Uh, in programming, we will see how these concepts will be applied, how to write the programming. But first, for the understanding, we need to know how to define a class, what is a class, what is an object, what we mean by data abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism. All of these concepts that I have written here, these are the object oriented programming features. Okay. So what is object oriented programming language? This basically supports mechanism to define, create, store and manipulate the objects. Okay. So I will tell what is a object, how to define a object and everything. So first, basic concept is about the class. Okay. So while we are going for the concept of object oriented programming, we have the concept of class and object. Okay. So just let's understand how, what is a class, uh, what are the so how we can define a class, what are the things that we need to specify while we are declaring a class. Okay. So in the C++ in object-oriented programming, we can say a class is the one of the more important building block, okay, of object-oriented programming. Okay. So what is a class? It is a user-defined data type. So if anyone is going to ask you what is a class, then you have to say it is a user defined data type, just like you have practiced a program related to structure in the lab. There you have defined the structure, that is also one of the user defined data type. Okay, similarly here also we can create different class. Okay, and that will be a user defined data type. Okay, and what basically it holds, a class is a collection of data members and member function. Okay, so two things you need to understand. Whenever I am defining a class, it has its own data members and member function. Okay, so we have to define the different data members, and also we have to define different member function. Okay, so I will give you example, and also how we can define the data member, how we can define the member function, that also we will see. Okay, so what is a data member? Basically, that is the variable declared inside the class are called as the data member. So inside a class, whatever variables you are declaring, okay, so that will be referred as, that will be termed as data member in object oriented programming concept. Okay, and some functions also we are declaring, okay, in order to perform some specific task. So those functions that are declared inside a class. So every class will hold its own data member and member function. So we cannot make use of the data member in a different class. So that also we can do. Like there are some other concepts are there, but you need to understand while you are declaring a class, it will basically has its own data member and member function. Okay, and these member functions are declared inside the class. Okay, now next thing is what is an object. Okay, so I will give you example. Okay, now the thing is how we can access all the data members and member functions. So you declared the data members, you declared different function inside the class, but how to make use of them. Okay, so one thing you need to know that these data members and members function can be accessed by creating an instance of a class. Okay, so what we have to do, we will create an instance of a class which is referred as, or which is called as, an object. Okay, so what we can do, I will say that these are the few examples, okay, you can, that you will relate to the real world. I can have an animal class, okay, and there I can have different objects of the animal class. So these are the different animals which are the objects of the animal class. So if I'm saying fruit as a class, then I can have all the different kind of fruits as one instance of the class, or one, it called as an object of the class. Okay, so similarly in a class, so in your class comprises of different students. Okay, so if I'm taking a student as a class, then I can define different object which will refer to a specific entity or a specific person or to a specific student. Okay, so just you need to understand, it's not about only defining a class or declaring the data member and member function. We also need to make use of all the data members and member function, or we can say we need to access all the member function and data uh, member, the data members and the member functions that needs to be accessed, for which you have to create an instance of the class which is called as the object. Okay, so once the class has been defined, we can create any number of objects belonging to the class. So you have to define the class. Okay, but once you define the class, then you can create any number of objects that belonging to the class depending on the requirement of the program. So what program that you have given with, for that, how many instances of the class needs to be created, how many object you need to create it, accordingly you can create. Okay, and objects are basically variables of the type class. Okay, so we are saying class is a user defined data type. So what is an object? It's basically are the variables of the type. So what is the type? That is the type class. Okay, of type class. Now each object is associated with the data of type class with which they are created. Okay, now you can take a simple example. Here I have taken an example of a car, okay, which I have considered as a class. Okay, and you know that there may be a cards of different names are there. So I can have the names, I can have different brands. Okay, uh, and all of the cars, like here I can see there are different objects are there, Mercedes, BMW, Audi. So these are the different objects are there. Okay, so there may be many cars are there which may have different name and brand, but all of you would agree that they have some common properties that are there. Okay, so when we are saying an object, so object, they have some common properties, some common attributes, and some common behavior they have. Okay, so again I will discuss what is the what we mean by common attributes or common behavior. But just you need to understand, whenever we are creating different objects, okay, we may have different names for the car, we may have different brand for the car, but they must be sharing some common attributes or some common property they must possess. Okay, so this is the just the logical structure for your understanding, and these are the few examples of the class. And as I already said, it's a user defined data type and it has its own data members and member function. Okay, And you know why we define different member function, because we have to uh, perform some specific tasks, or we make use of those functions to manipulate the variables. Okay, so that is why we can define different member functions. Okay, and what is an object? I already uh, discussed. It is an instance of the class. Okay, so objects are the basic runtime entities and in an object oriented system. Okay, so when I'm saying an object, it may represent a person, maybe a place, maybe a bank account. Okay, it may represent a fruit, maybe to a particular car. Okay, so it may represent to any real world entity. Okay, so when I'm saying as it is an object, it represents to a real world entity. Okay, now the important thing is when we are defining a class. Okay, so we will learn, okay, how to define a class, how to define object, okay, how to define the data members, member function, everything we will eventually learn through the programming point of view. Okay, but just you need to understand the basic concept that whenever we are creating a class, जब भी तुम एक class create कर रहे हो, that there will be no memory will be allocated. Okay, so no memory gets allocated while we are creating a class. So while you are defining a class or while you're creating a class, no memory gets allocated. But when you are creating an object, okay, or when the class is instantiated, okay, so in object oriented programming we refer to the term instantiated, or we can simply say when the object get created for a particular class, it takes up some of the memory space in the memory. Okay, and these objects actually for these objects the memory gets allocated, or we can say that when the object get created, object takes up space in the memory. Okay, and they have some associated address like the structure in C. Okay, so some memory address will be associated to the object. Okay, so this is the important concept. So sometimes we think that we are creating a class, so memory gets allocated, it must have an address, but no, only when the object get created or when the object is instantiated, at that point of time memory space gets allocated. Okay, and when a program is executed, the object interact by sending messages to one another. Okay, and I already discussed this point that every object have data structure called as attributes and behavior called operations. Okay, so every object possesses some of the attributes. So there are some common attributes that get shared, or that is some so every object, they do share some common properties or some common attributes are there. Okay, so this is the example account. Okay, so I can have the attributes like account number, account type, name, and balance. Okay, and I can have some behavior, okay, like deposit, withdrawal, inquiry. So this is a instance, or this is a representation of an object. Okay, so here I have basically taken this account to a specific account, but here I can also take account as a class also. Okay, so just this representation style that I have shown, considering a specific account. All of you understand, account can also be taken as a class. So I can take account as a class, and I can create different object for the account class, like SBI account, HDFC account, ICICI account. So these accounts, one instance will be called as one object. Okay, so not necessarily like this representation I have only shown for the object, but this account can also be taken as a class also, and for that class we can define or we can create different accounts referring to SBI account, ICICI account, and HDFC account. So different objects can be created. Okay, and for this object, like I said, there are many attributes are there, like account number, account type, name, balance. These are the attributes. Okay, and some of the behavior, or these are the functions. Okay, like we can do the operation like deposit, withdrawal, and inquiry. Okay, so just this is the object representation style. Okay, now again I will discuss like how we can go for defining a class or declaring an object. Okay, so you already know that. Just okay. So uh, after I cover about the data abstraction, encapsulation, and inheritance, then I will show you an example, okay, where I can define a class and where I can declare an object, okay, in how we can define a class in C++, what keyword basically you have to use, okay, and what is the format, and what is the content, or uh, what are the things that you have to define inside the body of a class, and all of the things I will show you. Okay, now the one of the important concept of object oriented programming is data abstraction. Okay, so again these things we will learn in separate chapters, separate module, okay, where we will uh, apply the concept of data abstraction in programming. Okay, so just for your understanding here I am covering the object oriented programming features, so you will get to understand what are the additional features that we have for object oriented programming concept. Okay, so what is a data abstraction? It is also one of the important feature of object oriented programming in C++. Okay, abstraction basically refers to providing only essential information to the outside world and hiding their background details. And it will only represent the needed information in program without representing the implementation detail, or the background details are hidden from the outside world or from the user. Okay, so data abstraction, what basically abstraction means, only whatever information which is essential or which is intended for the user, that gets provided about the data, okay, to the outside world, and we have to hide the implementation detail. Okay, like I can give you the example. In the real world you are using the TV, you are using a TV remote. Okay, you are switching on the TV, switching off the TV, you are changing the channel, you are adjusting the volume, you are also adding some external components such as speaker, VCR, DVD player. Okay, so all of the operations you are doing. Okay, but we really don't know what is the internal details, right? We only know how to operate the TV, like how to change the channel, which what button you have to press, which like how we can operate on the TV, that we know. Okay, but we really don't know internally how these things are really happening. Okay, so like how the like how we are uh, giving the instruction, how it receives the signal over the air through the cable, how it transmits them or translates them, and finally how it displays them on the screen. Okay, we only switch on the TV, we change the channel, but in reality, in background, there are some internal implementation, internal process that happens, okay, which are not really uh, essential for the user to know. Okay, so these informations are hidden from the outside world. Okay, and also we can say that a television on clearly separates its internal implementation from its external interface. So like you can play with the interfaces like the power button, channel changer, volume control without having a zero knowledge about its internal. Okay, so like I already said, we are only knowing the operation, how to operate the TV, how to change the channel कैसे करोगे, that we only get to know about, but we the internal implementation details are being hidden. Okay, so that is what we mean by abstraction. Okay, now in the C++, how we can apply the concept of abstraction using the classes. Okay, so we can also implement data abstraction in C++ using the concept of class. Okay, uh, so that part we will see. Abstraction कैसे use करोगे, क्या declare करना है. Okay, uh, for programming part, I will separately, once we will start in that chapter, we will include. Okay, so just this is an example, like only if we are creating a account for a specific customer in the bank. Okay, so only bank needs to have the information about the name, address, contact number, and the tax number. So these information about a particular person or a specific persons are not really needed uh, for a by a bank. Okay, so a bank doesn't really need all of the customer information for a particular business or for a particular account. So whatever information that are required, essential, that is being shown, and other which are not essential, not really essential, that are being hidden. Okay, now, one more concept of object-oriented programming is data encapsulation. Okay, so what is encapsulation? It's basically we have to bind the data and the functions into a single unit. Okay, so when we are saying encapsulation, it is also another object-oriented programming feature. Okay. Um, So it basically wrapping of the data and the function into a single unit, which is called as the uh, data encapsulation. Okay, so you know that there are different datas are there. There are different uh, functions we define which manipulates them. Okay, that manipulates the data. Okay, so we can go for data encapsulation. Okay, in programming also we will see how this concept can be implemented. Okay, and you already know ki, we cannot really access any function from a class directly. So when we are defining different member function, okay, we can't directly access all of the function from a class directly. We need to have an object, okay, to access that function, which is by using the members, the variable of the class. So basically, in order to access the function, member function, and data members, we need to uh, we can only need we can we need definitely an object to access the function, okay, which is using the member, the variable of the class. Okay, so the data is not accessible to the outside world, only those functions which are wrapped in the class that can access it. Okay, so uh, if we can see the diagram, so this is data encapsulation, the variables, the data, and the methods, that is normally referred as different functions. This can be wrapped in a single VNet. Okay, and the attributes wrapped in the classes are called as the data members, and the functions that operate on these data are called as the methods or the member function. Okay, so these things already we have studied. We are acquainted with the term data members and what exactly we mean by methods or the member function. Okay, so again, we in detail we will cover this thing. So here I'm not really covering the implementation about the concept inheritance, या फिर polymorphism, या फिर encapsulation. I'm not in detail discussing about it. Okay. Next is the concept inheritance. It is also another object-oriented programming feature. Okay. Uh, it is a process by which object of one class acquire the properties of objects of another class. So basically, here we have the concept of base class and derived class, or we can say super class and subclass. So through inheritance, the object of one class can inherit or it can acquire the properties or the attributes of objects of another class. So it basically supports the concept of hierarchical classification. Okay. So when we are going for the concept of inheritance, we can have many number of derived classes, okay, which can be derived from the base class. Okay, and each derived class, they do share some common characteristics with the class from which it is derived. So the class from which it is derived is referred as the base class or the super class. Okay, and each of the derived class, so I can have any number of derived classes. So we will see when we will get into the chapter inheritance, there are different types of inheritance are there, multi-level, multiple inheritance, all of the different type of inheritance we will learn. Okay, but just you need to understand the concept of inheritance is only for um, inheriting some of the properties, some of the characteristics from the base class or from the super class. Okay, and what is the main benefit of inheritance? That is to make use of the code, that is the code reusability. So sometimes in the interview, or maybe you may be asked why we will use the concept of inheritance. So the advantage is that we can uh, benefit from it, that is the benefit is the code reusability. So we will see in programming how the codes get reused and how this benefit can be actually be uh, how we can benefit it from the concept inheritance in the object oriented programming concept. Okay, so the concept code reusability means we can add some additional features to an existing class without modifying it. Okay, so this thing can be done by using the concept of inheritance. Okay, now the next, so this is just an example of inheritance. I can have a base class, super class, bird, and it had different attributes are there, and then I can go on defining different derived class or subclasses. Then it will also possess its own attributes, and also it can share some of the common attributes from the class which is from which it is being derived. Okay, similarly we can also go for different label go on defining different label, and we can create any number of derived classes. Okay, so some attributes they may possess by their own, and some of the attributes can be inherited from the superclass. Okay, now the next concept uh, in object oriented programming is about the polymorphism. Okay, so what is basically polymorphism? That is the ability to take more than one form. Okay, so this polymorphisms means the word itself means that we can have different forms. Okay, that like just an example you can understand, like uh, as a person I can uh, I can play, or I can have different characteristics. Okay, uh, like as a person, sometimes, like as a person I'm playing the role of a faculty, so I'm teaching you, I'm a professor. So here my role, my characteristics is I'm behaving like a professor. So in my family I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a wife. So there are different characteristics. Okay, so as a individual in real, like example you can understand, polymorphism means a particular person uh, who has different characteristics. It plays different roles, or it can have different forms. Okay, so like as an individual, as a person, I can have different role. I can be, I'm a professor, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a wife. So different roles, different characteristics that can be performed by a particular person, and it can exhibit different behavior on different situation also. So if I'm playing a role of a professor or a faculty, so here I have to exhibit the characteristics, like how to do the teaching, how to make the student understand. So different behaviors can be exhibited by different by the same person in different scenario. Okay, so like there are in C++, polymorphism has different concepts are there. Like we can go for compile time polymorphism, we can go for runtime polymorphism. So again, when I will get into the concept, I will make you understand what is the difference between compile time polymorphism and runtime polymorphism, and how these polymorphism can be achieved. So we can achieve compile time polymorphism that by making use of function overloading or operator overloading. So we will slowly get to know the different type of operators, and we will also learn how to do the function overloading. Okay, and how we, or how to do the operator overloading. Okay, so polymorphism, we can basically we can define it to two different category. One is the compile time and another one is the runtime. Okay, so I will show you the in programming about the concept of function overloading. Also we will go for the concept of operator overloading. Okay, and the second part of polymorphism, that is the runtime polymorphism, can also be achieved through function overriding. So there are three concepts are basically there. One is function overloading, operator overloading, and the third one is the function overriding. Okay, so these thing again in detail, from for programming point of view, we will learn how to make or how to implement all of the concept: runtime polymorphism, compile time polymorphism. Okay, Okay. Now, about uh, all the features, all the basic concept, we got an idea what are the different features we have. Now, the second part of the uh, basic concept is we have to go through all the programming basic. From a programming point of view, we have to go through all the fundamental construct of C, which is used in C++, like what is character state, what is keyword, constant, variable, data types, operator, expression, about control structure, branching and looping, typecasting, array, string. So these are the things eventually that I am going to cover. Okay. Then about the variables, the scope and lifetime of a variable. Okay. Then what is the difference between ordinary variable and pointer variable, also reference variable. Okay. Then about the concept of function. Okay. So in C plus programming, so this is the one of the simple code that would print the word hello world. Okay. So this is the program structure. So we have the we in the C++ language we can define several header which will contain information that is either necessary or useful to the program. Okay, so here we can see there is a header that is hash include IO stream. Okay, so I will again discuss what is IO stream and why we have included input output stream, what is the header file, what it signifies. Okay, then we are writing using namespace std. Okay, this basically tells the compiler to use the standard namespace. So namespace are the relatively recent addition to the C++. Okay, and after that we have to start the main function. Okay, so where exactly the execution of the program begins, and inside the main we can simply print a message that is the hello world. And previously we are using the concept of printf, scanf. Scanf, through scanf you are taking the input, printf you are printing the message, so that you are previously following in C. Okay, but here while we are going for printing a simple message, you can go for C out. Okay, so again in detail I will discuss what is this operator actually signifies. Okay, so this line will basically cause the message hello world to be displayed on the screen. So this is how we can simply print any message. Okay, we within codes we have to specify, and at the end we are uh, giving a semicolon, and we can at the end we can write down return 0, and that will terminate the program. So this is a very simple code that I have written that would print a simple message hello world. Okay, now while we have already gone through the code, now we know what is the structure of C++ program. One is the first thing, there is a preprocessor directive section is there. Okay, there we can go for declaring the header file. There is another section is there, that is the global declaration section. Then we can go on defining the class, and also we have to define the methods or function, or that function method definition section will be there, then followed by the main method. Okay, and then finally method definition section. So as I have already discussed, in object oriented programming we are following the concept of uh, bottom to up approach. Okay, so we have this structure for C++ programming. At the end there will be main method, and inside that you can write the body of the main method. So we will see different program. Okay, and there will be method definition section. Okay, now about the compilation and execution. So like in the lab I said that you can for now, till the time it is uh, online, you can go for any platform, online platform, or any platform which you are familiar with, Dev C++, or any platform which you are familiar with, you can go for writing your program. Our concern is you should write the program, you get the output, you should get familiar with the C++ programming structure. Okay, but I will show you, like I told that it is important if you will practice the programs in a Ubuntu environment. Okay, so again in the next class in the lab, I will show you how we can create different folder, how you can create a file there, how to save it, how to execute the file, and how to create through gedit, how we can create the file, how to write the program, how to save it, compile it, run it, everything I will show you. Okay, so this
Ma'am.
is for the compilation, you have to use G++ compiler. Okay, and then you can specify file name dot CPP, that is the extension we use for the C++ programming, and this is how we can run the program. Okay, so this is the compilation and execution process. This already you know when you must have learned the programming in C. We have a source file, and we have a compiler which compiles the program, the source file. Then we create an objectable file, object code. Okay, object files gets created. That's basically the intermediate file of the machine code output of the compiler. Okay, then we have the linker, loader, all of the concept, and we can finally able to get the executable file. Okay, now these are the different files that get used in C++ program. Okay, one is the source file that will contain the source code of the program which you are writing. Okay, and whose extension is .cpp, and that basically contains the main and the other function. Okay, and another type of file we can have in C++ is the header file that basically makes the subroutine and store them in the header file. Okay, and the third type of file we can have is the object file, which is basically generated by the compiler. Okay, so during the compilation we generate the object file after processing the source code file. So whatever source file we are having, which contains the source code, the codes for the program which we are writing. Okay, so that can be compiled, and the compiler will generate the object file. Okay, and that basically contains the binary code of the function definition, and the linker will use the object file to produce an executable file by combining the object file together. Okay, and it has an extension that is .obj. Okay, and finally this we are getting the executable file. Okay, so that is basically generated by the linker that will link to the various object file in order to produce the binary file that can be directly executed, and that will give you the desired output. Okay, now about the input output operator in C++, you know that for every program you have to take some sort of input and you have to display the output. Okay, so the operator which basically used for taking the input is known as the extraction or get from operator. So this operator will be used to take the input from the user. So whatever input you want to take for a certain program, for any specific program, you can make use of this extraction operator. Okay, while we can say the operator which is used for displaying the output is known as the insertion or put to operator. Okay, so these two operators basically used for taking input and displaying the desired output in the screen. Okay, so So the input operator, commonly known as extraction operator, or we can say gate from operator, that is used within the standard input stream Cin. Okay. So Cin basically treats data as a stream of characters. So that's why here you can see in the simple program, so we have not taken any input. We have only displayed the message through C out. Okay. But we have to make use of the standard input stream, that is C in. Okay. That will treat the data as a stream of character. Okay. And these characters flow from C into the program through the input operator. Okay. And this operator actually works on two operands. Okay. The Cin stream on its left and a variable on its right. Okay. So we will see how we can use the Cin. Okay. Just you need to understand the concept of input operator through this example. Okay. So we are taking just the value of integer variable a through Cin. Okay, and the operator symbol you have to use. This is how you can take the input from the user. Okay, and you are performing any simple mathematical arithmetic operations you can perform, simply adding a value, adding 1 to the value that you have taken as input, or multiplying, subtracting, any arithmetic operation you can perform, and that then finally you are writing return 0, and that is the termination. Okay. So this example, this statement C in A will basically take an input from the user and store it in the variable A. Okay. So whatever value you are taking, that will be stored in the variable A, and you can make use of the variable to do any operation which you want to perform for a program. Okay. And the output operator is known as insertion operator. Okay. uh, which can be used while you are writing or you want to display any output for your program. So the standard output stream C out, just like C in, here we are using C out. Okay. That also treats data as a stream of characters. So here we are treating the data which we are taking as an input, or which we are displaying as a stream of character. Okay. So the output operator directs the value to C out. Okay. So just we have taken A, the value, some value we have taken as an input for the variable, integer variable A. Then I'm simply adding 1, updating the value of A. And finally, I can display the updated value or modified value of A by using the output operator or the insertion operator. Okay, so that will give you the final value of A. So this is how we can make use of input and output operator while you are writing the C++ program. Okay. Now, cascading of input and output operator. So what
Absolutely
we
correct.
mean by cascading of input and output operator refers to consecutive occurrence of input or output operator in a single statement. So in a single statement, you can take input for one or more integer variable. Okay. So just the meaning cascading implies here we are taking, either we are cascading the input or the output operator. So two way we can do the cascading. It basically refers to uh, consecutive occurrence of input and output operator in a single statement. So in a single statement, I have uh, done the cascading. Okay, I have taken input for two integer variable a and b. Okay, then again I can display, but while you are displaying through C out, you can individually write the message. The value of B is likewise you can show the value. Okay, and in between that, if you want to perform any sort of arithmetic operation or any operation, that also you can do according to the program. Okay, so individually you have to display the value of b and value of a, and you know already what is the this slash n is used. Okay, so these specifiers you already know, so जैसे requirement है program के हिसाब से you can specify. Okay. Okay, so while you are writing the program, so I will just end with the comment, then we will again continue with the what are the different escape sequences we can have in C++. Okay, so while we are writing any program, sometimes we do write some comment line, but these comments are basically the portions of the code which gets ignored by the compiler. Okay, which only basically helps the user to make simple notes in the relevant area of the source code. So some of the program which you are writing, sometimes we do write some comment line that will just give you an idea about what exactly you have uh, done in that particular statement. Okay, okay, so some of the relevant areas of the source code, there we can, as a user, you can specify the comment line. Okay, so comments can either in block form or as in a single line. Okay, so C basically supports two type of commenting. Okay, one is single line comment, normally uh, start with double slash, and we have to continue the end of the line. Okay, and if the last character is a comment line, is a forward slash, the comment will continue in the next line. Okay, so just single line comment, and also it supports multi-line comment. Okay, which we informally we can call it as the C programming. In C programming, that style we you must have followed if you have written any comment in your program, in your source code. So this is the way how we can go for a multi-line comment. Okay. Okay, so next class I will cover what is the different escape sequence we can have. Okay, and what is the purpose of it, some of the escape sequence you must have used. Okay, like a new line,
मैम your voice is cracking.
that is supported by C++. Yes, constant variable. Hello.
एक्सक्यूज मी मैम।
Yes.
मैम आपने मैम जो मतलब सी प्लस का मैम मतलब स्टार्टिंग्स बताया मैम, ये आप वाया कोड कोड के थ्रू तो बताओगे ना?
हाँ हाँ, I will just cover the basic like constant variable, इस सब का जो भी basics है मैं बता दूंगी. Then we will go for a writing the codes, because some things are, some concept you already know. Okay, so that you must have covered in C, like the concept of array, string and all, that this thing you have already covered. So we will just get to the basic, then after that we will write the program, and there we will, I will show you how to make use of all the concept.
हाँ मैम, मतलब स्टार्टिंग में मतलब मैम जो सी को लिखना होता है मैम वो तो बताओगे मैम, इन
कहाँ
कंपाइलर
कहाँ?
में।
हाँ हाँ
मैम कंपाइलर में तो मतलब शुरुआत से मैम थोड़ा बताओगे कि क्या कैसे लिखना है।
हाँ हाँ, मैं बताऊंगी बताऊंगी।
ओके मैम।
हम्म। So these things I'm explaining because few things already you know and few things you have to know, like what are the other things that are being supported in C++. Okay. And then we can go for writing, because anyway our focus is we should able to write the programs in in C++ language. So I will tell you uh, the entire process, how to create a file, how to save it, how to execute it, how to compile it, everything I will tell. Okay, so don't worry. We have the lab there. I will take time to explain the simple code, simple program, how the entire process I will explain. Okay, all of you respond to your roll call 141.
Present, ma'am.